Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like, because the purpose of this channel is educational in regards to deconversion and atheist issues and any issues related to those issues. A hearty shout out to the Rabyd Nation. Join the nation by hitting that subscribe button, and if you want to be a paying citizen of the nation with all the rights thereof, hit your join button and you'll be given your options. Today I want to continue on my series called The Case Against God's Existence. Explaining this every time gets to be a chore, but I have to do it, otherwise when people will watch the video or don't, they get the wrong impression. I am basically examining these cases as an agnostic atheist, deciding whether I should move from being an agnostic atheist to a Gnostic atheist. This is my own personal examination of the arguments against God's existence, and so I'm not really making these cases so much as I am restating them so that people will understand them, but also have my own understanding enlightened as to what they really are. And then making an evaluation and seeing what weight, for me personally, that they have in getting rid of the existence of God. So today we're looking at part 7, and we're talking about the omnipotence and omniscience paradoxes. Okay, the omniscience, omnipotence paradox is pretty familiar to a lot of people in the sense that everybody's heard the question: can God make a rock that he can't lift? Can God create something that he cannot do? In other words, can God negate his own power with his power? Which seems to be a logical inconsistency if you have power. And so if you have all power, then you always are supposed to possess all power. If you negate one of your powers, then you don't have all power anymore, and so thus are not all powerful. The omniscience paradox is similar, other than it's something goes along with something along the lines: can God create a problem that he can't solve, or can God forget? Can God forget something and thus no longer be omniscient? Can God hide away a part of his knowledge and no longer be omniscient then and not know that thing? Can he, in his knowledge, create something like a math problem that he himself cannot solve? The omniscience paradox deals with knowledge more than power, but there's a lot of things in God's knowledge that this could affect. And so it does stand kind of against the more classic definition of omniscience. So that's kind of it. You know, the basic idea of both of these paradoxes is that the omni-God, the omniscient God, the omnipotent God, is kind of logically inconsistent. That if you're all-powerful, it's almost an impossibility to be all-powerful or all-knowing, because the moment you are, there's something that you do it. You know, you can bring the two together. Can God create like a labyrinth that he can't solve, or can he create a puzzle that he can't solve? Can he, you know, when you look at God and mix God's knowledge and power, can he do something that his knowledge and power can't overcome? And that becomes a real paradox to a lot of people. And I think the people who make the case against God's existence say, well, this God can't exist because this is logically inconsistent. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you think I haven't quite got the gist of it, or there's something I haven't considered, just leave that in the comments. But I want to do my evaluation, because I'm going to tell you that as a theologian, I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to get past these two problems, and I think I found a solution when I was still a theist, which is, when you look at the Bible doesn't claim that God is all-powerful or all-knowing in this sense. Okay, it claims a more contextual kind of thing and gives limitations to both God's power and omniscience that either are self-imposed by God or simply don't exist within the limits of logic. I dismissed the omnipotence paradox even back then, because I said, well, yeah, but we could say that God has all-powerful, that actually, the powers that actually exist, rather than fanciful ones like God creating a rock he can't lift. Because it's a logically inconsistent power, it doesn't exist, so therefore it's not a real power. Just because human beings can come up with these logical paradoxes doesn't necessarily mean that those powers or things exist. The same is true with omniscience. Part of the problem with omniscience is people keep putting God outside of time when there's really no biblical reason to do so. Everything in the Bible is revealed, quote unquote, by history over a timeline where God is inside the time. When God refers to his walk with Abraham, he uses the past tense, okay, and not the present, okay, at times. In other words, he has an understanding of his own place within time. And so one of the ways to get past the omniscience ideas is twofold. Number one, you simply define God that he is in a point of time, that he isn't timeless in the sense that he stands outside of it. And then what you get is then a propositional view of the future. In other words, God knows the future both absolutely and propositionally. In other words, there's certain things that God knows absolutely in his omniscience are going to take place because he's going to bring them about. But there's also things that are conditional. For instance, if you have giving a simple example, you come up to the ice cream counter and you see that there's chocolate, vanilla, and mint chocolate chip, and you thus have three choices of what kind of ice cream you want to grab. God would know all three of your choices, but he's not going to force you to make one of those choices himself, and he doesn't exactly know, because he's within inside time himself, which choice you will make. However, he knows all the results of the choices that you will make. For instance, he knows that if you pick chocolate, you'll actually find that more enjoyable. You'll find vanilla less so. You'll find mint chocolate chip, the best ice cream ever, which it is. Next to butter pecan. Some pretty good ones out there. But so he knows what you're going to like about each flavor. He knows all propositions. He knows that if you get the chocolate chip cone, you're going to turn to the right, and you might turn to the right or left. After you buy the cone, and if you turn to the right, you're going to trip, and your ice cream cone is going to go all over the floor. If you turn left, you're going to be fine. He knows all these different paths that your life could take. In other words, he very much, I could conceive of God as being like the fates weaving the tapestry of life, where he knows where each individual thread could possibly go in life, and where it's going to stop, and how it could potentially end. But he doesn't know the details. In other words, you put some limitations on God's knowledge and power and dial back a little bit, and he becomes more believable, and you get past all these logical paradoxes. And so even as a theologian, I was able to get past them. Now, the problem with that is multitude, but I'm not going to get into here with this video. The purpose is to evaluate the paradoxes. But I would just say here that the problem with that is, once I realized what I was doing, there was no real reason to consider that none of that was made up, that everything about God could be made up, what his attributes, so on and so forth. And it really kind of points to the fact that God is a very much a human invention. If I can change his attributes to fit what I need to fit so it's logically consistent, it kind of makes it something that we're just doing because we're trying to make things work. So does this get rid of God, though? I think it does. I think it does get rid of the classically, philosophically defined omniscient, omnipotent God. But as I've demonstrated, if you just take the Bible at face value of what God's powers are, what his knowledge are, it's not the classical definitions. It's dialed back a little bit. And so God actually, of the Bible, can escape those classical definitions if people allow him to do so. And that kind of gets rid of the fact that it's this paradox thing, both of them, only work if you're truly conceiving God of omnipotence or omniscience, either one or both. It only really attacks that God and gets rid of it. And so it has a very, very specific God it targets, and thus is a very limited value. The other thing that this doesn't do is to get rid of any polytheism. Polytheism survives because no polytheistic system I know of claims that any of the gods has all-powerful or all-knowing or whatever. They all have limitations on their knowledge and their power. So it kind of, it kind of escapes, because you can say that, maybe Thor can, can drop his hammer and nobody else can lift it. Okay, but you can't say that Thor, created the hammer necessarily. You can say that Odin can scry into the far corners of the earth and send out his ravens, and he knows quite a bit, but you can't say that he has all knowledge. There are certain things like when Ragnarok is going to happen and so on and so forth that he doesn't know. Polytheistic systems escape these paradoxes because they don't really have a character in their mythologies that have them. This also doesn't really deal with an impersonal thing like a force or a metaphysical energy or anything like that, because the energy or force doesn't necessarily claim omnipotence or omniscience. So, or if it does, doesn't necessarily use it or is constantly in flux what the power and knowledge it would have would be. So all of those types of gods escape this. So it's a good argument against a very, very specific God. Otherwise, it's kind of crap. It doesn't really get rid of the notion of the divine or the supernatural. It just kind of attacks a specific God. So not really helpful, in my opinion. So that'll be that. Thanks once again for every like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate everybody coming by, watching the video, taking the time to comment, like, share, do your things you do. Appreciate every single one of you. The channel continues to grow, and I enjoy every moment of it. You guys are great. As always, remember to live your best life. You only get one go around, and then it's over. So make sure you live for yourself, for the families and friends that you love and care for, and to build a better world. And don't waste your time, opportunities, or any of your money on faith or religion, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.